Hello everyone and welcome to the Movie Fanatics. My name is Brannock. I like making these videos. It's a fun pastime. It's one of my favorite hobbies and it gives me something to do when I'm bored and don't want to do homework. I love making videos that are more in-depth, critical, or just have a larger scope, and I think recently I've been doing that much more often. But it's kind of been a minute since I did a more laid-back, chill, quirky video. Don't get me wrong, I love talking about The Shining for an hour, but I also like sharing memories from drive-ins. And today's video will be more reminiscent of the latter. And I'm just in the mood to talk about some of my memorable experiences watching movies. No, that's the title. One of the first memories that comes to mind took place on May 4th, 2020. Of course, that's Star Wars Day. Everyone knows that. So I decided I would marathon the entire Skywalker saga. I got up at like 5 or 6 to start episode 1, and I finished episode 9 at like 3:30 a.m. I had tried the same thing a couple years before, but I fell asleep during Return of the Jedi. This time though, I was gonna make it. And I did. That was also the day the last episode of the Clone Wars Season 7 aired, so I watched that in between episodes 2 and 3. It was also a school day, but we were in quarantine, so I did the assigned work while watching Revenge of the Sith, because we didn't have online video calls until the following year. It was a long day, but I had a blast. It was such a fun marathon, even if I was watching movies that I know like the back of my hand. It was the first time I'd watched The Force Awakens in years, so I especially enjoyed that one because it had been so long. By the end of The Last Jedi, though, I was about ready to call it quits and go to bed, but the day started with me being tired and watching a bad movie, so it was only fit for it to end the same way. I haven't had a May 4th with a free schedule since, but the next time one comes around, I might watch them all again. Another experience I remember is from a sleepover birthday party a long time ago. My friends and I decided to watch National Treasure. I don't remember anything about this movie besides wanting it to end. I was very tired, but I'm not one to fall asleep while watching a movie. I will fight my eyelids as long as I can. By the end of it, I was really hoping you would just roll the credits so I could go to sleep. I probably should have just went to sleep then and there, because I don't remember anything about the movie. A really negative memory I had was watching The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't remember hating a movie in recent memory so much. I was not having a good time watching this one, and I liked the first one just fine. But this one is at the bottom of the Spider-Man ranking. Most of the memories in this video will be pretty recent. Go figure, they're the freshest in my mind. Watching 2001: A Space Odyssey for the first time was interesting. Last year in February, we had a 3-day weekend for whatever reason, and that Friday, our teacher showed us the Dawn of Man sequence. The movie kind of reeled me in, and I made a mental note to watch it on my own time. Then the teacher said he'd give extra credit to any student who would watch it and write a paper on it. It was a win-win. Now you may think I'm just a nerd for accepting extra homework over the weekend. So I watched it, of course. I started it with my mom and 8-year-old brother. My mom left shortly after the Dawn of Man sequence because she didn't like it, and I honestly wasn't really digging that movie past that point either. I was really bored during that part, but I became more engaged when I watched the Jupiter mission part. Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite really stole the show. I remember during the 10-minute Stargate sequence, I just stared at the screen transfixed. And my brother did the same, and he stayed to the end. I remember after the credits rolled, I went back to see just how long the Stargate sequence was, and when I found out that it was actually 10 minutes, I couldn't believe it. I guess the screen just really hypnotized me during that part. My brother is the kind of guy who will ask a bunch of questions about what's happening, why'd they do that, while we're watching a movie, but this time around he stayed absolutely silent during the Stargate and the ending. My teacher really hyped up the ending, and it certainly delivered. After the movie ended, I asked my brother if he liked it, and after sitting through all 2.5 hours of it, he looked at me and said, "No." And I kind of respect that, at least he saw it through to the end. I wrote my paper a couple days later, and my teacher really liked it. I'm still pretty proud about that one. And after that, I tweaked it a little bit and basically turned that paper into a script for my review of 2001. Another Kubrick movie I remember quite well is The Shining. I know I've talked about this movie ad nauseum, but I don't think I've ever mentioned my personal experience just watching it. The Shining terrified me, and I'm not one that really gets scared by horror movies very often. No subsequent horror flicks have had what it took to make my skin crawl quite like this one. I remember just being glued to the screen, my heart pounding basically the entire time. I watched the movie in the basement alone with the lights off, so it was really spooky. And I love the movie a lot, obviously. Though my problem with horror movies is that they never retain their scariness on subsequent viewings. This movie unfortunately suffers from that too, but man, I still remember that first night I watched it, and it really is stuck in my mind. It's one of my favorite memories watching a movie. And if I could rewatch any movie for the first time without knowing anything about it, it'd probably be this one. I've had other good experiences with horror movies. Halloween was good, creepy fun, and I recently watched It Follows. I loved it. I'll probably be giving it a review soon. I watched Jaws for the first time at Braden's house. You all know Braden, he's the other guy on the channel. I watched it at his house in the famous video discussing Jaws after Brannock sees it for the first time. I couldn't think of a better title, I'm so sorry. We filmed some pre-movie thoughts in the first few minutes of that video, and then we watched it. That was a lot of fun. I jumped really hard at the part where the head pops out underwater. That was pretty funny. Then after we finished it, we filmed the actual review part. I had a lot of fun that day. It was fun. He's obviously very fond of those movies, and it was great to watch them with him. and I got my hands on this PD recently, so I'll be sure to watch the movies in this collection with him because it's a great time. But I feel like every movie experience is a little better when you watch it in the theater. And sometimes the theater experience is better than the movie itself. The anticipation on the car ride to the theater to watch The Rise of Skywalker was much better than The Rise of Skywalker. Which is weird because I think my favorite theater experience ever was watching The Force Awakens. I remember having so much fun, even though I was just a dumb kid. And now that I'm a dumb older kid, I will say that I have a lot of fondness for that memory. I remember immediately wanting to go and watch Episode 8, and the prospect of waiting an entire year to do so was agonizing. Then I heard from a friend that the next Star Wars movie was going to be Episode 3.5. That wasn't fun. Now I would need to wait 2 whole years to watch Episode 8. I was so mad at Episode 3.5. Rogue One, they called it. My arch nemesis. I saw commercials for it on TV, and I actually got pretty excited. And what do you know? It only became my 3rd favorite Star Wars movie. The experience of watching Rogue One wasn't as good as watching The Force Awakens, despite me liking it better. It was probably because I was on the Star Wars hype train big time. Around the time that Force Awakens came out, I had just finished watching the first 6 movies. It was perfect. Then when The Last Jedi released, it began my complicated roller coaster relationship with the Star Wars sequels. I hated the movie at the time, but now I think it's pretty great. That's a video for another time. Watching Raiders of the Lost Ark at a drive-in was a magical experience. It was such a different atmosphere. I loved it. It was cool to see this classic movie that I loved so much on the big screen for the first time. But I already have a whole video about drive-in theaters, so I'll just leave it at that. I saw Kong Skull Island in theaters. There's no story to go along with that. I just like bringing it up because I think it's funny. And I wish I knew the first movie I ever saw in theaters. It might have been the Lego Movie, but I honestly have no idea. Well, this video has gone pretty off the rails. I should really outline my scripts. I have a lot more memories watching movies, obviously, and these are just a selection. Who knows? Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this video one day. Probably won't. But you know what they say. Regardless of whether a movie is good or bad, you might walk away with enough stories to fill a kind of mediocre Movie Fanatics video. Hello everyone, thank you for watching this thing. Braden is reviewing a bunch of Bond movies this year, and by a bunch I mean all of them. So that's going to be fun. He should have released a Dr. No video this weekend. If not, something has gone very wrong. But besides that, I don't really have any other channel updates. Expect a new video from me in about 2 weeks. Should be a review if it follows, but don't quote me on that. The podcast is still going strong. It's a lot of fun. It's just really nice to have that chill recording session every other weekend. And I love going back to rewatch them. This is a subtle way to get you to watch them. It says here on this note card that this is the part of the video I'm supposed to tease the Spider-Man ranking. So I'll make sure to do that. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you next time. This is Brannock from the Movie Fanatics, signing off.